I get to introduce the guy who I think we all know belongs up here. We always want to hear. I know I always want to hear him. He needs no introduction for a number of reasons, one of which is that he's already been out here 3 times. But I don't tire of him readily at all. I won't take much time to talk to you about his specific credentials. You know them. You know his impressive credentials, and you also see the other side. He is an author of countless books. He is a MacArthur Award winner. He is the world's most important skeptic, as far as I'm concerned. He is the reason so many of us are here. He is the reason, without doubt, that I am here. And I'll take a moment just to say that in the course of my life, at various times in my life, but through virtually the course of my entire life, he has been an inspiration, and then a colleague, and then a friend. As an inspiration, I saw him on Wonderama, a New York-based children's show. There you go. We're all dating ourselves. I saw him a long time ago there when he still had hair and it was black. And I saw him do the sucker die box. I saw him perform magic. I saw him do something that inspired me. It was something that I wanted to do also. I think I was a natural skeptic from really almost as long as I can remember, perhaps from the time I was 10 or 11 or so. But years later, he wrote a book called The Magic of Uri Geller. It's since been retitled, but the truth about Uri Geller, I always loved that original, that little extra zing of that original title. And when I read that book, it didn't so much tell me anything new. I already knew that Geller was just a trickster and a con man, but it radicalized me about the implications. It radicalized me about what it meant in the larger world. It got me angry. It got me to go to bookstores that didn't carry the book and order 6 copies to make sure they had them, and then I'd give those copies, I'd buy and give those copies away, and then when I ran out, I'd go to another bookstore, and if they didn't have the book, I'd make them order it, and I'd order some more copies for myself and give those away. And that led to more than 20 years ago when 25 years ago actually, when I became a co-founder of the National Capital Area Skeptics. And at that point, we began to become colleagues. Within a year or two, my group hosted the National PsyCop Conference, and we began to work together in many ways, and we have in many ways since. And somewhere along the line from all that, we became friends. And that is a pleasure and a privilege that never goes away, that I never stop celebrating on a day-to-day basis. I never stop celebrating every time the phone rings and that voice at the other end says, "It's Randy." And how are you, kid? And there is still, to this day, a little part of me when that happens that wants to turn to someone else in the room, even if there's no one else in the room, and just point to the phone and go, "It's Randy." So my inspiration, my colleague, and my friend, James Randi.
I've had a mystery resolved for me. I wonder why there was that big surge of sales in the Uri Geller book. I guess that was Jamie out at the bookstores rifling them of everything they had. Thank you very much, Jamie. That's well, it humbles me, really does. Yeah, I thought that I would sit out here and suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, that is your questions, and hopefully I'll be able to give some answers to them. It may be difficult to find a subject I haven't already spoken about out here, or that I haven't had a podcast about just recently, but I hope that you will try to come up with something provocative, perhaps, and ask me those questions. But I must say, Jamie Ian Swiss as a good friend for all these years, has been very inspirational to me as well in so many ways. He's a close friend of Penn and Teller, and was working with them and for them for quite some period of time, and served them very, very well. And Jamie, as most magicians, has been sort of up and down the scale, and he's been doing well, and then there have been some seasons when he doesn't do all that well. He's actually a happily married man now with an inherited family, and I never thought that I would see Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller ever get married and have kids, and he has kids as well. This is a revolution in what I expected of the world. I thought they would be perennial bachelors, but the man is so happy now with his new family, and that makes me very happy for him as well. So I cherish his friendship and his acquaintance, and I often call him just for the hell of it. And when you can call a guy just for the hell of it in the middle of the day or the middle of the night, just to hear what he might have to say to you, that's a true friend, I would say. So let us, can we have some, we don't have any house lights, have we? Do we can bring up the house lights on, or can we do the line up at the microphone, or what would we like to do? Let's just see hands. Okay. Questions? Yes, sir.
How's the Magician Laboratory going?
A Magician in the Laboratory, that's my next book. That'll be my 10th book. It's coming along very well. My problem now is I've got so much material. It's going to be that thick, I swear, and maybe this big. But it's all in the computer, and it's a case now of boiling down files and trying to not repeat yourself and a few things like that. But I made some notes on stuff that I'm going to mention here. These have got to be slipped into the computer tonight, as a matter of fact. Oh my, will I never end this book? I suppose I will eventually. But it's going to be, it's going to give me certain advantages, I must say, because some folks along the line, like Ben Veniste, are no longer with us, so I don't think he's going to sue me. And there are a few advantages to waiting this long. It's been 9 years since I've had a book out, and that's a long, long time. But I've been busy with a few things like cancer and heart attacks and things, so it slowed me down a wee bit, let's say, along the way. But it's coming along very, very well. I expect that probably by December I'll be turning in the manuscript, and shortly after that we'll see whether anyone buys, sales. I see a lot of customers down here. All I can see from the expressions on your faces that you're going to buy at least one copy, pardon me, or there will be action taken, I assure you. Next question.
Would people please mind lining up in front of the mic to ask their questions?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, yeah.
I like
Why don't
it.
we do that? All right. Oh, there's a gentleman approaching it, looking very fierce.
Okay, so as someone who has watched the skeptic movement develop over the last several decades into having some great podcasts out there these days and lots, I mean, filling an auditorium like this, what do you see as the future over the next several decades for the movement?
Well, I see, first of all, this is the information age. There's no question to that. I use Skype a lot. I'm on podcasts all the time. YouTube, I don't dare do a thing. I change my mind, and it's on YouTube 20 minutes later. I mean, it's ridiculous. YouTube picks up on everything. They came up some months ago with some 8mm black and white film of me at the age of 18 in the streets of Toronto making a fool of myself as a magician. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know who filmed it. I don't know where they got it. It just materialized out of nowhere. Secrets aren't safe anymore. It's just ridiculous. I can't do a thing or say a thing that it doesn't get on YouTube. Now, that's just fine to a certain extent. But at the same time, having stuff like this come out in such great quantities, our YouTube account, as a matter of fact, you can go in there, you can see just endless little stills of me, and you click on any one of them, and it's something from the far distant past. It's too much material in many cases. And as I'm saying to you about the book, as a matter of fact, there's just so much information available now, I'm going to have to close the door at a certain point and lock myself up very carefully and disconnect the phone and the computer and write the damn book, because I will never finish it otherwise. That's the same with the skeptical community. We are getting information all the time. There are being challenges made left and right, and at a great rate. The rate influx of challenges and such is just almost more than we can bear. It's good in many ways, but it's almost too much to handle. And I hope that the skeptical movement, I think that the skeptical movement should be able to diversify a little bit and get some specialties going for it. You can't just be generally skeptical, or you will just never end up making any answers or providing any answers or writing any books or articles. So I'm finding it rather confusing. But the plethora of information that's out there, remember, it's not all correct. There's an awful lot of woo-woo out there as well that starts out as if it supports a skeptical point of view, but it ends up being exactly the opposite. Be very careful. You saw this tape of Benedict, this idiot, this total idiot on homeopathy. That's a technical term I use every now and then. Homeopathy. Yeah, right. And you saw how illogical that man was. If you saw the whole presentation, and I don't hesitate to ask you to go to it, find it. It's there someplace on YouTube, and you'll just sit there with your mouth open saying, how can anyone run on like this? It's just astonishing, the amount of information that's out there. I love it. The information age is working very well, but beware. Choose your sources of information very carefully and think twice about them. Question?
So I'm a computer scientist by training, and I love the idea of getting into the skeptical movement as someone who can present information and help disabuse people of notions. But I find it really hard to find things that I can talk about to my expertise, because there doesn't seem to be, at least I haven't found as much BS out there regarding computers. Maybe because it's just more solid and less touchy-feely than medicine can be. I was wondering if you could share your experience with any sort of computing technological BS that you've come up with, come across rather.
I am a neophyte on the computer. I know how to use Word and Skype and a few things like that. But I have to call Joe Wag. He runs the cruises. You see, Jeff Wag is his son, who I have to refer to constantly. And I'll phone him up and I'll say, "Good morning, Jeff." And he says, "What's the problem?" It is never "How are you?" or anything like that. What's the problem? I'm always calling him with problems. I'm very computer illiterate. I hesitate to admit it, but I must. It's true. So I don't know how to advise you in that direction. I wish I had a better grasp of it. But computerese is a language I don't speak, but the art of the computer has added so much to our knowledge of the world and how we can disseminate that knowledge, part of the information age. So I would suggest to you that you keep your eyes open. Don't watch YouTube too much, because I'm all over it. Be careful. Beware. But yes, I would try to develop something in the direction of how computer technology can enter the age of the skeptic as well as the age of information. I'd have to leave that to you. I don't have a very good grasp of that whole situation. I apologize for that. But next question, please.
Hi. As technology and science have progressed, it seems that the amount of learning required to become an expert in any specific scientific or technological field has grown quite a bit. And so we've kind of come into an era where, even though there's a lot of information available, it seems almost like people are going to have a harder and harder time understanding science as it becomes more complicated. So how would you suggest that we in the skeptical movement can help prevent this situation where science has become so complicated that your average person has no interest in it and they would rather turn to these alternative ideas?
Yeah, that is a very good question and very basic. No, I shouldn't say that. No, it is an excellent question. I thank you for that. But the problem started decades ago when science started to become a little less popular than it should have stayed and should have been. We live with science each and every day of our lives, whether it's medical science or computational science or statistics or whatever. We really should know more about it. And I don't find that kids in school are all that interested in science. They'd rather have the romantic things going for them, the things that have a lot of pizzazz. But if they would listen to people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, for example, my goodness, that man has the way of appearing on television and getting people really excited about science and what is so stimulating about it. Now, I mentioned earlier today that I'm excited by sunsets and by more sunrises than sunsets, as I think I specified at my age. But I am excited over that kind of thing. And to watch a loon on a lake, as I did not too many months ago in Canada, wow. I mean, wonderful stuff that I hadn't seen for many, many years. I can be charmed by that sort of thing. You've got to get the youth of this nation and of the rest of the world, I would say, to give you a little more ambition than just for this country, to be interested in science and find out how very exciting it is. And that will rest on the shoulders of people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, for example, among many, who can make this sort of thing very exciting. And I am so pleased to see him in the position that he is in the public media. I think we have to celebrate his existence because he has this way of making science very exciting. So making science exciting, making it glamorous, making it cool, I think would be a great way to go with the younger generation. And we need that. We definitely need it, or we're going to stop in our tracks. Next, please.
I have two very quick questions. The first one is,
Well, the questions may be quick. The answers may not be. So.
What are we going to do about Oprah? She's an unstoppable rebel force.
Yes. On the other hand, now remember who she is. She rose from Baltimore, of all places. No, she started out in Baltimore. She had a partner on the air, a white-haired gentleman whose name I've forgotten now, and she fell for Uri Geller right away. He was one of the first guests on the program that she had in Baltimore, and she rose from there on an exponential curve. Look who she is today. She's probably the most prominent name in TV commentators, not only in this country, she's heard of in other countries as well, and she's got a great personality. She's very smart, but in some ways, she doesn't know very much about how the real world works. And she falls for every bit of woo-woo that comes along. I mean, Dr. Oz, for example, appropriately named, I would say. No wizard, but certainly from Oz. She gave him his own program. It's a top-rated program right now. And he believes in Reiki and all kinds of vibrational medicine and alternative medicine of all kinds and such. And he preaches this to the public. He's as dangerous as Oprah is on a much smaller scale. Oprah is a dangerous person. I must say that. I admire her. I do admire her. Now, wait a minute. Let me finish that statement. I do admire her. She's very successful. I've met her twice on her program, and I remember the last words she said to me, "Oh, Randy, don't be so cruel," when I was castigating a psychic. And my answer was, as soon as she is nice to me, I'll be less cruel to her. And that didn't go down too well with Oprah either. But I haven't done her program since. I don't know why. She hasn't asked me back. In any case, Oprah is very powerful. She's very influential. And if we could only get to her somehow and shake her up a bit, maybe I need to appear on the program again. That might do it. You can never tell. So maybe we'll try that. Your next question.
Yeah, sorry. Now, I've been a skeptic for a very long time, and I've also been an atheist for a very long time. And for a while, they have been two very separate things. Honestly, this is the first time where I noticed that they have kind of come together. And that's exciting to me, but it is also kind of alarming because I feel like it could push some people away that happen to be religious.
That's true.
And prevent people from joining the skeptics movement because I'm kind of nervous about skepticism becoming synonymous with atheism.
Yes.
And if you could just elaborate on that, I mean, if you share my concern.
Well, I'm very sensitive about that for the James Randi Educational Foundation as well. and therefore I've denied constantly, as DJ has told you very succinctly, much more succinctly than this, that we are not an atheist organization. However, there are atheists of two kinds. Ones that say that there is no God. I can't prove that, so I'm not that kind. The other one who says that there is no convincing evidence for me that there is a deity. And that's the kind of atheist I am. I can't prove the non-existence of a God or of a unicorn, as I've said previously, I know. The point is that being an atheist of the second kind, which is the way I refer to it, I think it is a much safer stance. You certainly can't be asked to prove the negative. But they are similar. Skepticism, that is, should include, I should say, skepticism should include the atheism of the second kind, too, because skepticism demands, I believe, in my definition of it or my acceptance of it, demands evidence. Evidence is the only thing that really speaks well. And I can say that I don't believe in, well, I don't believe in unicorns. I can't prove that they don't exist, again, but there is no evidence that I've been able to find for it. And people say, have you proven that psychics don't exist? No, not at all. They may very well exist. I don't think it's likely. All of the evidence, I'm at 81, and I started when I was 14, folks, so I've had all those years to look the problem over, the situation, and try to get an answer to it. The answer I get is not, no, there's no such thing as a psychic power, a clairvoyant power, or the supernatural or the occult. No, that's not what I come up with. I come up with the fact that there is no evidence that has convinced me of it and that would win the $1 million prize. Now, mind you, to win the $1 million prize, you don't have to convince me. You have to convince an independent panel that I would look over, more or less, for quality. But that's the only extent of involvement that I would be in the thing. So don't get me wrong. They don't have to prove anything to me. They just have to prove it to the satisfaction of an independent panel. And that would have to be a properly qualified independent panel, of course. So the whole business of mixing religion with skepticism, I think, is a good idea so long as it is tempered by those thoughts that I have tried to give you succinctly and failed, obviously. Sorry about that. Yes, next question.
Hi. I think, well, skeptics love truth, but I think we also love each other. I think we love humanity. And
Yes.
when we see someone fall victim to pseudoscience or disinformation, it hurts us because we generally want the best for each person. But when we go about trying to explain to somebody that they're being tricked or that they're being fooled, we seem to come off as a wet blanket. And we just want to argue, we want to be argumentative. So how do you think we can better convey that we want to help people and that we genuinely care about people and not that we just want to, tell them that they're wrong?
Well, yes, do it by questioning. Do it gently, as I've said previously, and many times during this day, as a matter of fact. Do it gently, do it kindly, do it with consideration and sympathy with the situation in which they're in. If they have these, what we believe to be false beliefs, ask them for the evidence. Question them gently and just simply say, why do you believe that? And if they have to explain why they believe it, that will often cause doubt in their own minds. They will break down at a certain point and say, wait a minute, maybe the guy's got a point. And send them away thinking. Again, I've said that previously today, but send them away thinking about the answers that they have given you in response to your simple questions. But be gentle, be kind, don't think that they're stupid. It's just that they're uninformed, and they should be better informed. Encourage them to become better informed. That's the best advice I can give you on that. Yes.
Yes. Well, anyway, I've noticed that when you discuss topics with people, they seem to fall into three groups. Now I know that's an oversimplification, but it seems to be the believer, the non-believer, and then the person who's on the fence. And you get kind of a, oh, I never really thought about it when you talk to those people. And I was wondering who you think it's more important to reach out to, the believer or the person who hasn't really given it much thought?
Well, of course, the easiest one is the person who hasn't given it much thought, because you give them some things to think about. Then they've given it much thought, you see. They're the easiest to go after, but you've got to go after all of them. You've got to just provide some doubt in there and give them some good examples. Now, I'm a little more experienced at that than the average person is. I have been around for many years, as I said, but that has given me the experience, and I sort of know, as a magician as well, I'm a performer, you see, and I know how to approach these people. I know how to get to them. I know what angle to take with them. So it's a difficult art to tell you about. I mean, I really can't instruct you in the art of how to convince people, not convince people, but suggest to people that there is a different point of view that they might like to embrace. It's very difficult to explain, really. I wish I had better details for you, but, well, live to my age and then you'll have found out.
Thank you.
And I encourage you to do that. Yes.
Hi, my name's Danny. I host a small get-together called the Jolly 13. That's enough of the self-promotion, but I had a question. Skepticism is basically fighting a multi-headed dragon that keeps growing new heads. What is, in your mind, one of the best or the greatest wins for skepticism in the recent years?
Oh my goodness, that's a difficult question to answer. That's a very good question. You're talking about the Hydra, I believe, and I believe the Hydra was also mythical, but I won't get into the details on that with you. I don't know what well, you know, we have made some strides. I know that personally, with the people who have approached me and said, boy, you made a difference in the way I think, and I thank you. Those are personal examples of people who have come to me. And those are only individuals, but they may be very important individuals. We don't know where they're going to go with this change of mind. I hope that they will go to the top with it, of course. But there are some people in the media that I have more or less gotten to, and I can't do anything with Larry King. Not at all. I mean, my letter from Carson that I can quote almost verbatim that I have on my wall at the foundation says in so many words, the enclosed is to help you educate Larry King and Montel Williams. And it was a check for $100,000. But I wrote him back and said, that's not sufficient, John. And he wrote me just one word on email, and he said, try. And I tried, but I can't win. Montel Williams, first of all, is what we call in the trade a media whore. He's only interested in, and that's the term, yes, that's used in the media business. He's only interested in getting sponsors. He doesn't care whether what he does or says harms anybody, whether it hurts him emotionally or financially. He doesn't care. All he cares about is whether it attracts sponsors. That's his bottom line, and the rest of it is not important to him. But it's difficult. It's very difficult to decide. You know, I didn't reach either Montel or Larry, but I have reached some of the people in China particularly, and I can't quote the names to you. That wouldn't mean anything to you anyway. But I did reach a couple of people who have now become rather close colleagues of mine, as a matter of fact, that I talked out of some of their present attitude, or their attitudes at that time about the supernatural and the paranormal. And I've had very satisfactory exchanges of letters with them, and of email particularly, and even conversations on Skype. Yay for Skype. The price is right, isn't it? Hey, can't beat it. There you go. So I find these weapons, such communication means, as being very, very powerful and very, again, economical to do this sort of work. I've made a lot of strides for it. We have all made strides for it. But look at this group that we've got right here now. That's evidence of it. And 1,007 people at the last TAM. Damn, that's a lot of people that we have gotten to and that have gone out into the world to spread the message. And I certainly hope that all of you do. I hope that all of the people who attend our conferences, all of the skeptical conferences, will go out there and get militant about it. Grab these people in bars or on street corners and park benches. I don't care where. And if you hear them spouting nonsense and everything, you say, that's an interesting point of view. Have you ever thought about, and then hit them with a line someplace along that? You can do it, and you may make a change in an individual who will then go forth to be much more important than you might have suspected they could ever be. Perhaps they'll become a teacher or an instructor of some kind, or they'll just say something to somebody else that will inspire them. Go forth and spread the word, as they say. I think that's the way to go about it.
Okay, I have a short question that leads into a longer question. Randy, in the past you've said sometimes that the PhD diploma is dangerous because once a person has that in their hands, they become incapable of saying, I was wrong. So my question is, I'm a math PhD student, I'm studying mathematics, so in a few years, when I get my PhD, if I am capable after that point of saying I was wrong, do I win $1 million?
Well, no, you can make application. We may give you 25 cents, but...
It's good enough for me. So my real question actually is, as a mathematician, I find that when I'm speaking to people and I make any kind of comment or statement that has a mathematical flavor to it, they just shut down and they believe whatever I say without questioning or anything like that. And I haven't gotten drunk with power yet, but it's a concern. So my question is, how do those of us who are skeptics and also have expertise in a certain field keep from abusing that power? I mean, it would be much easier for me to gain a lot of power and following by using my authority. And so how do we sort of keep from abusing that power and prevent each other from abusing that power? And also, how do I convince people that I'm speaking to take what I say skeptically?
Oh, that's a heavy question. That's a good question, pardon me. Yeah, that's rather heavy. That would call for, how much time we got? It would call for quite an expenditure of time and of effort, but I would be happy to address that if I had all that time and strength to address it. But that is a difficult question to answer, I must say. How do you apply it? See, not knowing very much about mathematics, simple arithmetic I'm very good at, but other than that, and I learned to calculate percentages in pounds, shillings, and pence just before they changed the monetary standard in the UK. Of course, my timing was impeccable in that respect. But no, mathematics, I don't know how that would really apply, except that you might want to start reading more Martin Gardner, because Martin Gardner is the consummate mathematician, though he doesn't have a degree in mathematics. Pardon?
I already have several of his books.
Well, good for you, and we should all have all of Martin Gardner's books, especially the latest one dedicated to moi, which I was so flattered by that, it took me a couple of days to get over it. I still haven't gotten over it. But no, Martin, if you read Martin Gardner's books carefully, several of them, The Wise of a, what was the name of the book? Isn't that awful? I can't think of The Wise of a Meandering Philosopher or something like that. I've forgotten the name, I'm sorry. Pardon me, Martin. But if you read that sort of thing by Martin Gardner, you'll find how he can use mathematical reasoning and reasoning about the science of mathematics, and it certainly is a science, the most basic probably of all sciences, and I congratulate you for being in that field, to make logic look practical and useful. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to make these things look like something that people can use every day and that they actually can apply to problems and situations where they have to think things out. I'll be all right. Again, I don't have much expertise in that direction. I'm sorry, that's not a very satisfactory answer, but I took a long time to say it, didn't I?
Works for me, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I have to premise this with, I ask this question with all respect, and that's always the kiss of death when you say something like that.
Okay.
But, with all due respect. But I am curious if you regret or have any second thoughts about your comments on global climate change.
Well,
and if you take away anything from it and can learn something.
Thank you for that question. Thank you. That was a very good question. Yes, I made a comment on SWIFT, an offhand comment. I started out by saying, right at the beginning of it, this is a subject on which I have no expertise whatsoever, and then I went ahead and declared on the general situation that was being presented about global warming. And I said very clearly in there that I rather doubt that we have enough information to know that global warming is taking place in the way that it has been described to me, because we're living on a huge planet here. No, it's not Jupiter, it's much smaller, but it is a huge planet for those of us little guys that live on it, on the crust only, I would hope. And it is such a complicated system, atmospheric-wise, ocean-wise, and whatnot, and with earthquakes and all kinds of strange influences that have been here for generations and generations, if not 20 or 30,000 years. These same elements have been working on the earth and therefore on us as a species that inhabits the earth and all other species at the same time. And they come and they go. And the point is that it's such a complicated picture. You can't work out an equation for this. The mathematics is far, far too complicated for that. And that's why I expressed a certain amount of doubt that we know enough about how the planet works that we can get some formulas together to determine or to predict, to be able to predict, because any theory is only as good as its ability to predict given results under given circumstances. I thought that I expressed doubt that there was enough information on that. And yet the response I got to that, and I ended up saying, again, this is a subject in which I had no expertise, but I just thought I'd throw this out. But I only got answers from two different kinds of people. People who say, oh, you're totally against global warming, and the others who say, I'm glad to see that you accept global warming unreservedly. That wasn't, neither one of those was my opinion on this. I was just expressing a certain amount of doubt about whether or not we were capable of figuring this out at this present state of our existence. And I thought that was a sort of innocuous comment, and I meant it quite innocently. I didn't mean it to make an uproar, but boy, did it make an uproar. I had to go on, I think, the following week or 2 weeks afterwards and explain, wait a minute, folks, I'm not for it or against it. I just wanted to express an opinion. And that didn't seem to cause much excitement either. But I'm still getting letters. I got a book, literally this thick, I've forgotten the name of it, but it says, from a non-governmental agency about global warming. And it's strictly against global warming. It's a big, thick book like this. Most of it is references. You see 2 paragraphs and then 2 pages of references for the paragraphs, and then 2 more paragraphs. A very heavy tome, to say the least. And I must admit that I have not read it. I haven't got that much time in my life to read the whole thing. That'd be the rest of my life for sure. But I must say, I got very, very bad reactions to that, and I was accused of all kinds of things. And I'm not guilty, not guilty. I just meant it as a casual sort of observation, and I got all this bad reaction on the thing. So I'm not saying whether I believe in global warming or not, and I just don't have enough expertise to know that. I just have certain doubts about whether or not we know enough about it to be able to declare that way. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to say congratulations for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think it's a really good thing you did. Now, my very serious question is, do you think that you were the model for J.K. Rowling's Dumbledore?
No, I think he was a model for me. No, that can't be, can it? I really wondered. I wonder, because he turned out to be gay too, the actor, right? And I wonder about that. I have to wonder about that. But I never made the connection. I never did, but some people have, apparently. But I would have beaten up Harry Potter a couple of times there, waving that wand around with the whole thing there. And I certainly don't believe the story, the basic story. I'm sorry, I must apologize to the author for that. But beautiful stories. I really enjoy them. I will watch a Harry Potter movie over and over again because I just love the fantasy. But knowing that it's fantasy, folks, I want to assure you of that. But no, I don't think there is any connection there. I would be flattered if there were, I can tell you that. But to get back to your first comment there about my coming out, I should say something about that, I think. Now, people, great number, the reaction, literally hundreds of responses from all over the world, and they're still coming on email and by mail and every way you can imagine, all over the place. Phone calls, people coming by the foundation just to drop in and congratulate me and whatnot. Congratulate me, I don't quite know what the congratulations are for. I didn't have a baby or anything like that I know of. But I must say that I rather expected when I went into to do this sort of thing, and I discussed it with DJ and with Jeff Wagg and with our sponsors and our executive board and such, and they said, go wait till after the new year because things will be quieting down a little bit. And I wanted to make sure I was finished with the Caribbean cruise because I wanted to be in place at the James Randi Educational Foundation in case anyone decided to get at me and start to pick at the place or whatever. I wanted to be there. I didn't want to be away on a cruise someplace in the Caribbean trying to escape. So I made sure that I did it at exactly the right time. And I anticipated that the reception to this news, yeah, right. I think everybody in the world knew already, but what the hell. Certainly all my family and friends and my business friends and whatnot, and if anyone asked me, I would tell them right up that, yep, that's the way it is. And if they wanted more answers, I'd give them more answers as well. I have never been shy about that. I've always been quite open with it. So I have not been a closet queen, as they say. I don't match the description anyway. I think I've managed to get around that a little bit. No, I was not quite prepared for the reaction that I did get, though, which was, except for only 4 of the letters and or emails came down on me and tried to insult me. And they just wrote off my back. Nothing happened. I didn't pay any attention to them whatsoever. And the spelling was bad, too. So you get an idea of the kind of people who criticize me for it. But I figured I had to do it, and there's a good reason for doing it at the age of 81. I hadn't had occasion to do it before then. There was no reason for it. As I say, just about everybody knew, and I never made any bones about it if asked, and it wasn't part of my professional life anyway. But I decided to do it because my next book, A Magician in the Laboratory, that I'm sure you'll all rush out and buy immediately, as soon as it's published, not yet, it is going to be very autobiographical because a great deal of my life has been spent traveling around the world and visiting academics in situ, so to speak, and also in their labs, their very labs where they're making terrible errors of judgment and falling for psychic phenomena and whatnot, and I've tried to relieve them of that delusion. So it is autobiographical to a certain extent, yes. And I figured that coming out with it right now would be sort of prepare the way, and so people can't accuse me of having had this dreadful dark secret out there. But I meet people in the street now come rushing up to me and say, oh, thank you so much. And the most important part, the fallout from this thing that I did not expect at all. I didn't anticipate this. I'm getting a lot of communication from young people who are saying, now that you've done this, I think I can do this too. Yeah. I can come out, and you've given me courage to do it. Yes. Yes, indeed. That was the greatest reward of all, I can tell you. I encouraged these people. I gave them courage, just a little push maybe in the right direction. I hope it's in the right direction, because we are now much more understanding than the world was when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, oh, I would have been stoned to death, if not beaten up in the schoolyard each and every day. But I never concealed it. I didn't run around with a hood over my head or anything like that. No, I just sort of rode with the storm. And so I'm very, very grateful for the reaction, and I accept the congratulations, I guess, true. I guess I have to do that. But it's been very good to me. And you folks, and so many folks around the world have been very good to me in this respect, and I thank you all, sincerely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next question.
Throughout the day and throughout, everyone lists you as their inspiration. You were the first person they saw. You were the first person I saw on TV. My first introduction to homeopathy was that thing you did on the BBC.
Oh, yes.
What I'm worried about is we don't have the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson today. Mm-hmm. We don't have that kind of, you just got to get on 1 or 2 shows and you have that media exposure. Mm-hmm. I haven't watched Oprah in 13 years. I haven't watched the Tonight Show in 13 years. As soon as I got that computer or cable, I haven't looked at broadcast television or main. What I'm worried is that we won't get another James Randi, but I'm worried that we won't get another James Randi, another inspiration, because your delivery is very much showmanship, and so many people who are very much into science advocacy are scientists first, and then they learn how to do the presentation second. And both that and the fact that we don't have that media penetration that we used to have just by getting on one show, how do you suggest coping with that going forward and having to reach the kids who aren't here, the kids who can't afford to come here, or just regular watching TV, or just are on the computer, on YouTube? Because, yeah, you're on YouTube, but you're drowned out below anime music videos.
Very true. But I'd also add we don't have a Johnny Carson around anymore either.
Yes.
And Johnny Carson reached out. He broke all the rules. He did shows about frivolous subjects, actresses and such, and strange people with weird hobbies and stupid dog tricks. And no, that's another guy, isn't it? Yeah. But Johnny Carson's program was very light and such. It got heavy from time to time on certain subjects, it's true. But when he went out of his way, now, I went to Fred de Cordova, and now deceased, dear Fred, who was the producer of the Johnny Carson show, at the time that I uncovered the Popoff fiasco. And I had the recordings there. And I went into Fred de Cordova's office, and I played this bit of tape for him, and he just reared back in his chair, and he says, "Oh, wow, this is heavy." And I said, "Yes, Fred, can you use it?" He said, "Oh, yeah, Johnny will love this." And he said, "Oh, yes, he'll love it." And he reached for the phone, and I put out my hand, and I said, "Hold on." He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Don't tell John." And he said, "Oh, no, John doesn't like surprises." And I said, wait a minute, listen to me now. Fred, I know that he doesn't like surprises. Just think of one thing, the expression on his face when he hears the second recording with the soundtrack on it, with Mrs. Popoff talking over the microphone. And Fred looked at me and he said, "Okay, but it's on your head." And he didn't call Johnny, and we presented it that night, that very night. He bumped a couple of actresses off the show, and which didn't please them, I'm sure. But he rang me in right there. I was in Los Angeles at the time. I had the tape. They edited the tape right away. They rushed it through, and they put it on the program that night. Now, Johnny Carson, when he saw the first playing of the tape, he was sitting there, and he was doing this business with his pencil, which means that he's very agitated and rather disturbed over the thing. And he didn't know what we were about to play. And then I said, "Well, John, now let's see the second part of the tape. This time you'll see it with the additional recording, and you'll hear the voice of Peter Popoff's wife." Now, what you don't know, if you see that, look at it on YouTube. It's on YouTube. I know it's got to be on 15 different places in YouTube. But when you watch it, now you'll have the inside knowledge of what I know about it and what nobody else knows about it. This is a little inside secret here. At the point where Mrs. Popoff's voice came in, John was sitting there watching the monitor, and he said, "Oh, shit." And then he grabbed his mouth, and he did this kind of thing to the audience to shush them up, you see, and they all died down. They were laughing, of course, you see, and he quieted it down, and he did this kind of a thing, and he watched the rest of the tape. He was so surprised. He didn't know what the gimmick was that we were about to show him, you see, and de Cordova was probably having a fit backstage there. He could see his job going right out the window, you see. But then after the show, John was sitting there doing the thing with the pencil again like this, only much faster this time, and he said, "You know, that's disturbing." And he meant, that's a blow in the gut. That's what he really meant by that. And he was very disturbed over that. And he said, "You know, you want to believe," and he went on with his little speech there. But he had been very disturbed by that. And they edited that out. Remember, that was done at 5:30 in the afternoon. It wasn't broadcast till 11:30 at night. They had time to edit out and just put crowd noise in the back of the thing, so you didn't hear the laughter of the audience. But when you see that tape again, and do tune in on YouTube and take a look at it, and you'll see the moment where the audience, the sound effect in the back of the audience just suddenly changes. There's a sudden drop in it that you wouldn't notice normally, but you'll notice it now, and you'll know that's where Johnny said, "Oh, shit," and then clapped his hand over his mouth like that. It's a funny sequence, but we don't have Johnny Carson any longer, you see. Johnny would do things like that, and Fred came to at the end of the program while the audience was filing out. Fred came over to the table and said, we're going to get letters. And John looked up at him and said, yes, Fred, and you're going to answer them. That was pretty good. And they had a wonderful relationship, the two of them, I can assure you. But no, we don't have people like Johnny Carson any longer who would dare to do a thing like that. Larry King's not going to do it. Montel Williams not going to do it. Oprah's not going to do it. Nobody's going to do that sort of thing. So I just don't know where to go now. But you people sitting in front of me right now at this very moment, there are some of you in there who can go out and do something about it. Use your influence. Get out there and teach people. Get them to think about these things. That's one reason that you came here today and lined up outside in the cold there waiting to get in, and you're here. Damn, get out there and do something. I'm depending on people like you and the people that are going to come to the TAMs here and in Las Vegas and in England and this year in Australia as well. And I'm depending on some of those people getting out there and doing what we did and perhaps trying to approximate what Johnny Carson did for us. I revere his memory. Believe me, I miss him a lot. I miss him a lot. But in any case, that's what I would suggest. I think that is the way to go. Get people like these people here organized to do something about it and try to get to the media. There are a couple of people in the media out there who are now coming around to my point of view and have invited me to appear. And you'll see that come along eventually, but we're not quite ready to do it yet. Next case.
I just wanted to let you know I took care of that spam problem you were having, so you no longer have to worry about that.
The who problem?
The spam problem.
Spam?
It's Jeff.
I never eat spam. But
You can't see me, but it's all right.
No, I have had a spam problem if you're talking about computers.
Yeah, Randy, it's Jeff Wagg talking to you.
I can't tell.
I know.
Oh, Jeff, Jeff Wagg's here. Hey. Jeff.
Anyway, I actually had an honest question. I first encountered you speaking for the Skeptic Society many years ago, and last year you spoke for CFI World Congress, and this year you're here at NECSS.
Yes.
And DJ Grothy, after 10 years of an illustrative career at CFI, is now president of the JREF. Is this ushering in a new era of cooperation among the major skeptic groups?
I suspect, Jeff, that it is. I suspect that certainly we've gotten much closer to CFI than we were previously. Remember, when CFI was CSICOP years ago, CSICOP, I was literally ousted from CSICOP because at an executive meeting in Maryland, someplace, I think Baltimore, I'm not sure, many, many years ago, we had an executive board meeting, and I was told by the executive there that I had to lay off criticizing Uri Geller, because he was suing us for millions and millions of dollars. He never won any of the suits, of course, but that cost us a lot in legal costs. It cost me, as I said previously, most of the MacArthur Prize that I got many years ago, just to defend it. And I was told, you have to lay off mentioning Uri Geller in any respect whatsoever. And I said, but that's what we were set up to do, to fight people like Geller. And I was told, no, you simply have to agree not to mention Geller again. And I simply took the pin, the CSICOP pin out of my lapel, stuck it in the table, and said, then I resign. And I walked out of the room. I never went back. And I had Ray Hyman and Jim Alcock and other people jumped out of their chairs and followed me out into the hall saying, don't go away, no, come on back, we'll talk about it. I said, I don't talk about it until I get a reversal of that statement. Until I hear that, I'm not going back into CSICOP. And I didn't. I stayed out of it. However, the management at CSICOP has essentially changed now. It's become CFI. And changes have been made, and people like Barry Carr have been very, very encouraging in this respect. I must say, we're getting closer and closer together all the time. And I think that there may very well be a merging of the organizations. That's not for further discussion. I'm sorry, I won't say any more about it than that. I've said too much already. Silly me. Ho, ho, ho. But I think that is on the verge of taking place. It very well may take place, and that would increase our force and our impetus, and it would increase our influence on the world. And I would say that most of us here would look forward to that brave possibility. Don't you think? Thank you. I've been given the finger like this, yes. The finger like this, which means one more, okay? Who else?
Okay, if we treat what we do, skepticism, like a business.
Yes.
And if you look at it as a business, we have competitors, we have target markets.
Mm-hmm.
When you strategize with the organizations, what are some of the key strategies that have come up for 2010 and future years using, all your organizations, the internet, any of these types of things? What are some of the key strategies that you think we should be focusing on?
Well, one thing we found to be very, very successful is having videos out there on YouTube. It's been very effective. The number of viewers we get, look at the hits on those videos that are out there. It's in the tens of thousands. It's just mounting every day. So many people watch. That's a very big weapon right there, communications. And we have good people at the JRF who are managing these things for us and turning out these videos. I have been, as you know, laid up recently, and I haven't had a chance to get as many of them out as I would like to, but I'm coming along now. Let me see. Yeah, it's still going. That's a good sign. It's always a good sign. And I'm getting my strength back rapidly. I'm going to do many more of these things. I hope to be able to turn out 2 and perhaps even 3 every week now. And we've got the scripts ready for them. We're ready to do them. That's one thing we are going to do. But the facilities of CFI and of Skeptic Society and various other organizations like this all over this country and in other parts of the world as well, hint, hint, the facilities represented by an amalgamation of all these organizations is so strong that I hesitate to see. This is like lighting a fuse and standing back with your fingers in your ears, and the bomb is as big as you are. It's not going to help much, It's going to go out, and you're going to hear it. You're really going to hear it, even if you got both fingers in your ears very tightly. This is going to, it's going to be a total revolution in the skeptic business, and it is a business. Let's face it. As I was just asked, this is a business, and you've got to do it on a business-like basis. And DJ Grothe is the guy who can do it. Believe me, he can do it.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, please thank you to James Randi.
Well, thank you. Oh, my. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. I think we did okay.
The kid's all right.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And please, give me just a moment to just give you a couple of final words here. Thank you so much for being here at the second NECSS, making it such a success for us. We hope to see you back next year. We hope to move on with NECSS and actually expand it to be even bigger and better. So thank you so much. We really, without you, the first time we hung the NECSS banner out, we had no idea what was going to happen. We had no idea if anybody was going to show up or who might show up. And sure enough, you filled the room for us 2 years in a row. And for that, we are particularly grateful, New York City Skeptics and New England Skeptics. Sincerely, thank you for your support. It's really the most important thing I have to say. Besides that, as you exit, you'll see at the tables there, we can take advance orders for the NECSS 2 DVD sets, which will be out. You can also buy NECSS T-shirts there, beautiful black T-shirts as well as the purple ones you got. And finally, did you have a good time this year? Thank you for that, but if you had a good time this year, or even if you didn't, please do us the favor. You'll find pens out there at the table. Please take an extra moment to fill out those surveys in your bags. We learn from them, we listen to them. It will help guide us in the future. So please take a moment to give us your feedback. Once again, on behalf of New York City Skeptics, New England Skeptics, NECSS 2, the New England Conference on Science and the Northeastern Conference on Science and Skepticism. My name's Jamie Ian Swiss. Thank you so much for being here.